Welcome to Through the Fire with Angelina Paul, a space where every story matters, every voice is honored, and no journey is left untold. Let's journey together through the flames, uncovering the beauty of redemption, restoration, and the unbreakable human spirit. So welcome to Through the Fire with Angelina Paul. I am your host, Angelina Paul. And so today I have Kristina. So Kristina, I always like to start with something before I introduce my guest because I do prepare, and you and I have spoken before we came here in preparation for this episode. And always when I speak to the guests that come, you always leave me with something that makes me think about a part of my life, something that resonates with me. So I'll tell you, when I spoke with you, and I know that we'll talk a little bit more about this later, You spoke about running away a lot when you were younger.
Yes.
And so I'll tell you the story. It's hilarious, I think, now that I talk about it. I don't think it was then for my parents. But when I don't know how old I was, I just know that I was old enough to have a passport because I actually ran away to another country. I cannot tell you what happened. It must have been really, really traumatic because it is tucked away somewhere right deep inside of me. And no matter what's happened in my life, I haven't been able to dig up what it is that actually happened. But it was intense enough to where I felt I needed to live somewhere else, not the next block, not the next city, not the next town or province or state, but another country. So I literally ran away from Zimbabwe, where I'm from, to Botswana. So it's almost like going from Canada to the US. So it reminded me of what I wrote in my book, Through the Fire. There is a whole book, people, where this podcast is coming from. So anyway, this is what I wrote. I wrote on page 62. So as I began the journey, it turned out that since I was 20 years old, I have lived in 4 countries and several cities. I've also sat in toxic relationships knowingly while making excuses to stay, and have behaved in ways that were toxic for myself and people who really supported me and relied on me. Now, I can provide you with many of what may seem valid explanations or reasons as to why I behaved in a certain manner or stayed in the wrong places, reasons as to why I moved or why I stayed. Anywhere between greener pastures, better opportunities, or the winner, that man loves me. I just know that he does. So it reminded me that I was a runner, just like you. And so I posed this question to myself. So this is the only opportunity that you will ever get to ask me a question. But you only get to do this in the end, if you remember. I want you to ask me, Angelina, have you stopped running? And if the answer is yes, why? If the answer is no, why? But here's the kicker. I'm going to get to ask you the same question. From one runner to another. Yeah. Have you stopped running? Yes or no, and why? Okay? So ladies and gentlemen, this is Kristina. Her story is incredibly profound and sensitive. You are a daughter, of course, a sister. You're a single mom of 3 neurodivergent children. 2 of your children are autistic with different needs, and your other child has cerebral palsy.
Yes.
And these 3 diagnoses came within several months of each other in a span of 2 years.
Yes.
I took note of that because I thought, how could I ever, right? At 36 weeks pregnant with your last baby, your mom, whom you describe as your best friend, and we'll talk more about that, is diagnosed with breast cancer and has to spend 2 months in hospital. So you mentioned to me when we were preparing this podcast, many different traumas that you experienced as a child. So my question to you is, can you tell me a little bit about these traumas? You said that these traumas continue to impact you even as you are developing and as you're growing? Tell me a little bit about those traumas.
Traumas. It's like,
I know, with an S.
yeah, traumas are just like, it's one of those things that they change you forever.
Yeah.
And it can be a trauma that's happens when you're little. It can be abandonment. It can be, sexual abuse. It can be seeing someone hit by a car. Like, there is so many ways trauma can be described.
Yeah.
And like for me, when I was about 11,
Yeah.
we were really poor. At that time, I think a lot of people can understand that situation now, because back then we had to move into some trailers, like camping trailers.
Yeah.
And my mom really did not want us living in a bad neighborhood. That was one of her non-negotiables. And so we ended up moving into like this campground. And, for that part as a kid, it was fun.
Yeah.
Okay. It was fun because we used to go into the forest I'd go into the forest with my brothers and we'd go investigating and, we used to do stupid things like put my little brother on a wagon and shoot him down the hill.
The red wagon.
Yeah.
You told me about the red wagon story.
Yeah. Shoot him down the hill to see if he'd survive. And he did. So we would try those things after.
Yeah.
But, in that place, it's just, how people can be very sneaky.
Yeah.
And
so there is a neighbor.
Yeah,
you had.
Yeah.
That pretty much groomed your family.
Yeah. And didn't now now I can look back and I can see it all.
Yeah.
Right. But back then, even then, my parents probably didn't really realize what was exactly happening and stuff. But he was an older neighbor. He had been a paramedic at one point, and he even moved provinces. And now you look back and you understand, like, oh, that was a sign. That was a sign, right? Because his family wouldn't talk to him.
Yeah.
His daughters wouldn't talk to him.
Yeah.
And we just, you don't know. And so he would come over to our house and have our trailer and have coffee with my mom and my dad. And sometimes he'd have drinks with my dad. And, he'd bring his dog and cat around because he had a little poodle that he would walk around and, all those things that now we're all taught, like, oh, seriously, like he had a dog, he like gave you food and candy.
Now
and
you're like, he fits the profile.
Yeah, like
But
it all
back
made
then,
sense.
It was just like this really lovely guy with 2 puppies and paramedic. What a respectable profession.
Yes.
And we're over here, we're poor, and he's taken a liking to us. And yeah.
And we'd get gifts and all that kind of thing. It's just, it makes sense now that he was what he was.
Yeah.
And at that time, my mom had that sense in her to always tell us, like, don't go into his trailer.
Yeah.
Right. Just don't go to his trailer. Always be together. Because we would wander around the campground. It was normal. Like, there wasn't a lot of families that were there year round.
Yeah.
So we all knew each other. And there was one day, I can't remember why my brother wasn't there, but I went over and I think he had paid me to pick up cigarette butts in his yard.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, sweet.
And you're like, woohoo, I'm going to make some money.
Yeah. I'm like, sweet money. And then now I can go.
The neighbor's giving me a chore and he's going to pay me for it.
And then I can go to the gas station and get some candy and a slushie. Right.
Yeah.
So, and he ended up, I didn't realize it, but he had put some kind of drug in Sunny Delight. And I still I'm 37 now. And Sunny Delight is one of those things you see at the dollar.
I always hated Sunny Delight though. Like, honestly, I'm not just saying. So he gives you a Sunny Delight.
Yeah. And then, he gave me a Sunny Delight. And I don't remember everything, which I'm very thankful for.
Yeah.
But I remember him taking me into his trailer. I remember, like, the smell of the cat litter he had in there. I remember the sleeping bag.
Yeah.
I remember, I had lost an earring.
Yeah.
And, there was a few of those things that really
just pop up randomly that you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I didn't tell my family about that it was a couple of years until we were out of that campground. And, I had hit a really bad depressive state, and I was hospitalized as a kid. And back then they didn't have many psychiatric units for kids.
Yeah.
So I was in the peds ward. And
right.
yeah.
So the neighbor raped you.
Yes,
when he gave you this sunny delight.
Yes.
And you just remember smells and certain pictures of what might have been happening there.
Yes.
How does this betrayal, how does it shape your view of trust and safety?
I did not trust men for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like men were, to me, they were the devil.
Yeah.
Right. And just hands down, they were the devil. I thought every man, and this was for a really long time, that they had bad intentions. And it's just.
Your view of men was just like, no.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with any man. No. And did this involve, what about your brothers? What about uncles, family members? What were you feeling when you were around any men who were your family that you knew at least that they wouldn't do anything to harm you? Or did that become relative where you were like, any man has the potential to do it?
Any man.
Could be my brother, could be my uncle.
It could be anyone. And I really struggled, and I'm thankful my dad, which he's my dad, but by a lot, technically he's my stepdad, but he's my dad, hands down, right?
Yeah.
He was really good in the sense that he understood that I was scared of him, even though he had nothing to do with it, but because he was a man, I was scared of him. So, he just respected that space.
And he gave you the space.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't know what had actually happened to you, you could just sense that he shouldn't be too close or too familiar.
Yeah.
Right? I want to talk about when you told me about the red wagon, why I remember it. So this is this memory you have with your siblings and you're playing in this red wagon. And it was just like we're saying in hindsight, you realize that this neighbor met the profile. When you were playing with your brothers, there was something that was happening where you could tell that there was an attraction. What was that?
I can even remember what I was wearing that day.
What were you wearing that day?
It was like a yellow, spaghetti top, because we're talking year 2000, right? So it was spaghetti tops were it. And I was wearing, it was yellow and white. And let's
just give a moment to spaghetti tops, just because right now we are two very full women. Oh. Spaghetti tops are not the thing.
Not anymore.
Do you wear any in the summer?
No,
I don't.
I can't.
So spaghetti tops, we're just saying.
No, but
make
this is
ones that work for fuller women. But anyway, so you remember what you were wearing?
Yeah. And we were running around, right? And my brothers were in the wagon and I was pushing, because we would take turns pushing and then one steering, and we could see how fast we could get that person to crash. And it was just crazy. And I remember my brother had steered into this guy's his camping spot, right?
Yeah.
And I remember him just looking at me, right? And looking at me in the sense of he was checking my chest out because I was leaned over.
Yeah.
Right. And that was something that, even though you're 10, 11, it felt so gross.
It felt uncomfortable.
Yes. And I didn't really understand it, but I felt gross. And, I wanted to hide myself. And I hid my body for years after that.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I can see that. So already there were signs that he was scoping you out.
Yes.
And he was just really oogling. And so that moment of the sunny delight was just sort of, him wrapping up his whatever he had been imagining.
Yeah.
That's really terrible. And I'm thinking this is a person that you're trusting almost as close as a family member. Yeah. And they're still looking at you in that way where you'd expect that they might look at you as a daughter.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're seeing. So now this has happened and you're having just a hard time with it.
Yes.
And as you're having this hard time, there are some behaviors that start to come out that lead to them misdiagnosing you with borderline personality
Yes.
disorder. Can you talk to
Yes.
me about that?
As a teenager, I ran away a lot. I ran away. I wasn't happy in my body.
Yeah.
And so anything I could do to escape it, I would. I was taking pills, like if I could take a crap load of Tylenol just so I could get a little bit of a buzz from that.
Yeah.
Just to escape, I would take gravel. I'd go to the grocery store and I would just overdose on gravel.
Yeah.
I was cutting a lot back
Yeah.
then. And some of them were superficial, just like, I would take a razor and I would just like cut my skin, just thin things. And then there were other not so superficial ones that, back then I would find anything to cut.
Yeah.
So it could be like a razor in the bathroom. I would take apart them, right? The old Bic style, like just the very plain ones.
Yeah.
I would take those apart. I would take nail clippers to myself. I'd pull up my skin and I would cut off chunks of my skin because I hated myself so much. And it was really because I wasn't okay in my body.
Yeah. And this incident, from what you remember, is the one that really started this whole
Yes.
the events that started unraveling with your behavior.
Yes.
What is it about yourself that you feel at the time that you hated the most?
I hated being a girl.
Yeah.
Anything that meant being feminine, a girl, I hated. I saw
Like what?
Just the physical, like even physical, like having breasts, having a vagina, having, anything that was female or feminine, I hated. I back then I wore black and, big baggy sweaters and my hair was long and I just kept it in a ponytail and just as plain as you could be because I did not want to be noticed again.
Anything that would remind you of the spaghetti top moment that your boobs were, showing and this man was oogling at you.
Yes.
So the breasts, the vagina, the nicely shaped body, the bums, anything that was like you're a woman had to be covered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you deliberately would look for clothes and to be that way.
Yes.
What about your face? I see you now. You have brilliant makeup and you have lipstick on. Are you putting lipstick? Are you doing anything to your face? Or are you so do you think you were wanting to be seen as a boy or just anything else other than a girl?
I can't say I wanted to be seen as a boy. I just didn't want to be noticed.
Yeah.
I did not want to be seen by anyone. I didn't want the guys noticing any of, because back then, I was developing pretty quickly and I didn't want anyone to notice any of that.
You wanted to disappear.
Yes.
You've talked about suicidal thoughts and self-harm. Looking back now, what helped you to hold on and keep fighting?
Oh my gosh. The people that were consistent.
Yeah.
100%. The people that, and I've had it over the years, which I've been so thankful for, is the people that would just be there and they didn't necessarily need to talk about, people knew I had been traumatized and stuff, but they didn't need to talk about that. It was like, okay, Kristina, we're just going to come sit here. And if you want to have coffee, we can have coffee. Or, back then it was hot chocolate. And, the people that just showed up and didn't have any expectations, they didn't want anything, they didn't want my story.
Yeah.
Right? And they didn't want to fix me either.
Yeah.
It was just, we're going to sit with you in your darkness and that's just how it's going to be. And I'd say those were the most valuable people that I had.
That's
back
what
then.
made you hold on.
Yeah.
And so you talk a lot about your mom, how she supported you in this time. Can you tell me some of the things that she did? I know that she spent all the time with you, she would sleep on the floor in your hospital room. What else did your mom do?
My mom. Like I said, she's one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
And back then, now I can see all the sacrifices she made.
Yeah.
Back
now
then,
that you're a mom.
Yeah, now that I'm a mom. Back then, I'm I hate you.
Do you think you could do what she did for you, for your children?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And you think it's mostly her influence that would 100%, make you...
100%.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this yesterday. I like made a post on Facebook because I have some stuff going on in my house, and it's like, you know, I just hope I can make the same. Like, I hope my kids can grow up looking at me.
Yeah.
Like I look at my mom now. Like, yes, I did not like all the things my mom did when I was growing up, right? Because she was being a mom. She wasn't necessarily being my friend.
Yeah.
She was being my mom, and she was telling me, like, no, Kristina, you cannot do, you know, we're going to lock all the knives up. We are going to lock all the pills up, you know. Yeah, this might make you feel pretty shitty as a person, but I'd rather you feel shitty because, you know, you're not allowed razors in the bathroom because you're cutting. So we're going to get you some Nair or something.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Like, she's locking up the razors. She's getting all this stuff out the way that you're using to harm yourself. And then after that, she's like, yeah, and then I'll be in your hospital room with you.
Yeah.
Wow. How many times do you think you were in the hospital growing up?
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I know. I'm asking that question.
I don't
like,
know.
Just throw a number out there. Like, how often... Well, when you would go in the hospital, would you stay there for like weeks on end sometimes?
Yes, there was times like that. There was times where it was like I would just needed an emergency hospital trip because they needed to give me charcoal because I had swallowed a whole bunch of pills. There'd be emergency trips because I had cut myself and I wasn't like technically considered safe at home.
Yeah.
There was hospital stays, so overnight for like a week until they could wiggle with my medication. And then there was months that I'd spent in hospitals. So it really fluctuated.
Wow. So you mentioned earlier that they'll put you in a pediatric ward.
Yes.
And so, but they're treating you for something that they're saying is psychological or this multiple personality disorder, but you're amongst like children your age.
Yes.
Wow.
My age. And actually there was like in that room when I was, you know, because it was a small town at that time and it was just the hospital I had actually, there was a baby next to me. And we were shared room and I was in there for, you know, suicidal thoughts and they were trying to balance my medications because I wasn't considered safe to leave.
Yeah.
And there was a little baby next to me on the other side of the curtain.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
That is insane.
It was.
Do you think you wanted to kill yourself?
At times, yes.
Yeah.
At times, yes. And other times it was just, I didn't want to die, but I just wanted the pain to be like done, just not to feel for a while. Just, you know, so I would take, like I said, the gravel, right? And it was like, you know, I take it and I was like, well, if I wake up, I wake up. If I don't, I don't.
Wow.
You know, and I mean, like, take a lot of gravel. You're going to sleep for quite a few hours.
But you're not going to die.
No, but.
Yeah. Wow. So when you became a mother, you said you were petrified of doing something that might hurt your children. How has your past shaped the way you parent your children now? So you have 3 children, neurodivergent.
Oh my.
They are like particular
Yes.
about what they want, how they want things to be, how they want to be talked to, what they will and will not do.
Yes.
So tell me about that. So you were petrified.
Oh, yeah.
What were you scared would happen?
So, like, we had talked about the borderline personality disorder thing, right?
Yeah.
So when I was younger, they had diagnosed me with it.
Yeah.
But it was a misdiagnosis. At this point, now they consider a lot of those behaviors complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
Okay. So, but a lot, but
2
people,
different spectrums,
oh,
right?
Yes.
You have multiple personality disorder.
Yes.
And then post-traumatic disorder.
Yes. So, you know, it was, you know, so back then when they had said that I had this borderline personality disorder and stuff, right? I was never treated properly by medical professionals because they thought that, it's just in her head.
Yeah.
Right. So it got to the point that when I was pregnant with, actually, it was only my last child that I didn't feel like I needed to bring my mom to appointments with me.
Wow.
But I had to bring my mom to appointments with me, even when the kids were born, because it was like the doctor wasn't treating me like I knew what I was saying. Like I was a sane parent.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm noticing this in my kid. I'm noticing that. And I would get ignored because
they would
it's
just
like,
attribute that to the personality disorder.
Yeah, borderline personality disorder. So,
wow.
Yeah. So she had the doctor at that point. I just did not treat me very well, and it really gave me the fear that my kids would be taken away.
Yeah.
Being a mom with Indigenous kids, and then being a mom with a mental illness, and then becoming a single parent.
Yeah.
And, my medication was not balanced because I had postpartum depression after the first 2 kids. So, it was just, I was always scared that my kids would be taken away.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I was connected as much as I could in our community.
Yeah.
So through like Interior Health, I had a nurse, I had a counselor, I was attending groups, anything that
you're overly applying yourself to make sure that if anyone is looking in your record, it shows that you're doing normal things, and you're a normal person, and you can keep your children.
Yes.
Wow. How is that pressure though? How is that pressure on you? Like when you're thinking like you're overly performing, like I'm one parent, my children, you know how people take their children to soccer and ballet and this and this. I tell my children, like, you pick one thing. Like, I'm not that person. I'm not going to soccer. I'm not going to this and that. Then their parents would do that. I think that's overwhelming because parenting in itself without all of this stuff is stressful. So I'm thinking of you where, like, for me, it's a preference. I just don't want to do that, right? But you have this thing hanging over you where you could potentially lose your children. And so you have all these things that you have to commit to on top of being a parent to these 3 children that have all these needs. How is that pressure?
I crash and burn so many times.
Wow. What does crash and burning look like for you when that happens?
Back then, it would just be really deep depression.
Yeah.
Deep depression. My kids were always taken care of. And if I couldn't take care of my kids went to my mom's house. I'd be calling my mom and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, at one point, my postpartum got so bad that I didn't want to be around my kids. I loved them so much, but I didn't want to be around them because I was scared I was going to damage them in some way.
Yeah.
Like, even them just seeing me, like, frozen on the couch, or, maybe I wouldn't react fast enough to something.
Yeah.
And,
Sounds like living in fear.
I did, yeah.
At most times. And that's horrible for your nervous system.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, I only just, going through therapy after the passing of my mom, and my daughter passed away a year apart. And I'm the same, like my mom was my everything.
Yeah.
I have one memory in Kelowna of my mom that really sticks out is during COVID, our savings was depleting. And I knew that I needed to do something before we get to that rock bottom. So what I did is I got a job at Walmart. And for some reason, they hired me as part-time, and they would always give me these late shifts where I was finished at 11. Yeah. And so because of time difference, my mom is in Zimbabwe. I'm over here. I knew that she'd be awake by that time. My mom always woke up at 6 to pray. Thank God she prayed. I think all of this is a manifestation of her prayers. But I would call her going up Dilworth Mountain because I'm driving. It's so dark. I can't see. And I would call and she would talk with me right until I get home. So for me, like, just thinking of what my mom means to me and those little things that someone will think, well, what's the big deal? But it was like my moment with my mom.
Yep.
And so now even when I go up Dilworth Mountain, going to Glenmore, it's like I think of my mom. Yeah. So when I hear about your relationship with your mom, that you could just, you have that person you can call and say, Mom, like, I can't. And she would understand.
Yes.
And she doesn't judge you. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
I don't know. Like,
or is it in your head where you think like, oh, she's judging me? But
something I struggled with a long time was that she was also a single parent, but she told me it differently. Like, maybe it's just that generation where it's like everything looks prettier than it is.
Yeah.
and we're not going to talk about like the struggles and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, being a single parent she had 3 kids too at one point where she was a single parent.
Yeah.
And, you know, from what I understand, she didn't go through depression like I did.
Yeah.
But
did she suffer from postpartum at times, you think?
I don't know. Okay, so I know she went through depression at one point in her life, yes, but she did not go through the postpartum.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I've had one kid where I didn't go through postpartum, and it's a totally different feeling.
Yeah.
So, you know, in that sense, I did feel a little bit judged, like, Kristina, why can't you get your shit together?
Yeah,
like, come on, like, start making better choices, you know?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like, you know, how, like, I always felt horrible when my mom would come take my first or second or whatever, right?
Yeah.
With her. And
because she seemed like she held it down when she was a single mom. Yes. And you're failing to do the same thing.
Yes. Because I remember like packing my little's bag and, you know, grandma would come over and I remember them leaving and I'd be standing at the door and I just like, I'd go inside and I probably went and hurt myself at that point. Like I probably just I did whatever I could to zone out. I'd cry. I'd watch TV. I don't know. Just
anything.
Anything.
Yeah. It's good that you mentioned that because like for me, I know that I felt like my mom, at least one thing she didn't judge, but I think that's just really, I don't know, maybe it's her generation, African thing. I don't know. But I do know that she had some struggles that I think why this is important to me. I feel like her generation, there's a lot of things that were left unspoken.
Yes.
So I think that's one of my goals is that, you know, for as long as someone wants to have the conversation, let's talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of things that what my perception of her was or my experience with her, is because that she was able to hold her tongue. But, you know, what in that last moment that she was leaving this earth. So this is the story that I was told. So I got a phone call early in the morning and it said mom had been taken to the hospital. Like she finished her breakfast and she's like, I can't do it. I'm feeling pain. Take me to the doctor. So in a doctor's office is where they had quickly diagnosed her with COVID and they were trying to give her oxygen and whatnot. And then an older sister, who was a cousin, but much older than all of us, was one of the people that hurried there with other family members. But she's the one who went in. And this is just really a cultural thing. Like, you know, the oldest will go in. It's you know, the matriarch of the family. If she's going to get undressed or things like that, it has to be an older child. Like you can't send like your 8-year-old to see her naked or whatever. Right. And so she went in and she said that my mom just coughed up blood like 3 times and she helped her. And then when she passed, she went, but the was like, oh, come on. Like to me, that's how it sounded like, really? Like I still had more. So I don't know. That's what I think. I think that there was something that I believe there was a lot of things that were unspoken.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that was, at least to me. So I want, when my moment to go comes, I want to be able to be like, peace out.
I love that.
Gone. I don't want to or ooh or any of those things. So I'm happy that you've mentioned that there are those things about your relationship with your mom, you know, even as she is one of your best people ever, your favorite person, but that there were those things that you felt just being a mom as well. So you talked about understanding your own trauma and how it's helped you better support your children.
Yes.
Especially as they navigate their own challenges.
Yes.
How important is it to understand your own trauma and what did that look like for you?
Therapy. Yeah. Just hands down, I went into therapy.
Yeah.
And that started with I've been in therapy for almost 8 years now.
Yeah.
And it has been like such a godsend. I know it has to end at one point, but you know, it's been a true godsend because I've learned a lot about myself, what happened when I was a kid, how, you know, different interactions with men over the years happened. And even my own feelings, being able to identify my own feelings and not just like, right? Because that's how I would get. I would just get like almost like growly. Like you can't communicate your growly situation. And like with my kids now, that's been something that was very important right from the start, because I knew my kids had a higher chance of anxiety. Was that we learn feelings, right? So we got the books on the feelings, and we talked about feelings. And I have a little one at home right now, and that one can tell me that they're mad. Right. And I have another one that is like, I'm mad and I'm frustrated and, I'm also sad, and those are just like, then you can actually go from there. Right. With your kids. And then you can be, you can have empathy also because like, two of them are autistic and I don't always have empathy sometimes. Like some of my empathy, I'm like, seriously, like, are we fighting? Oh, like, you wore those pants the other day and now you can't wear them because they don't feel right. Or we tried on all those shirts and you were really good with those shirts. You liked them.
But today you don't.
You don't like them now. They just don't feel right. But then you see their facial expression and you can see how much discomfort it causes in them. And, if the socks aren't fitting right, it's like, is this the mountain I'm going to die on? They're like, this hill, it's becoming a mountain, but is this what I'm going to die on? Right. So
you have those foundational things now from your time that you've taken in the therapy. So you have, you have at least some sort of blueprint.
I can breathe. I've learned
you can breathe through things.
Yes, I've learned how to do that. Really breathing and breathing's really important. I don't think people realize how important it is just to like when your kids are driving you up the wall, no matter what they're like if they're neurodivergent or neurotypical or just being little shits, because sometimes they know that mom
they can pull your chain.
They're like, ooh, I'm gonna get her. Right? I was like, and it's like I lock myself in the bathroom sometimes, and that's okay. Like I'm not yelling at my kids. I'm not traumatizing
but you're
them.
Just hiding in the bathroom. And I think what you're talking about now is really important. Is that when you got the misdiagnosis. Some of the behaviors, when you were talking to me, you said they're just behaviors of a regular teenager.
Yes.
What teenager doesn't do this?
Yes.
But from that moment that somebody misdiagnosed you, it wasn't looked at in that way.
Yes.
And like what you just mentioned now, I hide in the bathroom too from my children. And the bathroom has been one of my greatest friends ever. One of the friends that I have that I will always thank is Sony PlayStation. Big up to Sony PlayStation. Those people that say husbands shouldn't play video games or kids shouldn't play video games younger, I don't know. But for me, it's time that I can that I can have to myself. But what you're talking about is that even though your children are neurodivergent, they're also just kids.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there are things they do, not because you're autistic, not because you have cerebral palsy, but you're a human, you're a child.
Yes.
And all kids do those things.
Yes.
And now because you've done all this work, you're able to see that. You're not looking at your children just through this one lens that maybe the world might want you to, but you are looking at them just as regular people. And it also comes from that nobody did that for you. When you were younger, and all this stuff was just loaded onto you. So I want to know, though, even though you have these techniques that you're using from your therapy, what is a typical day for you? What does that day look like, and how do you find moments of strength in that? I know you hide in the bathroom. What else? Like, what's a typical day? Let's talk about that first.
Typical day. I have so many alarms in the morning just to wake me up and then make sure I haven't fallen asleep again, and then I go in and I wake up the kids. And then one kid has a 5-minute alarm. So I turn that over. And once that alarm goes, I hear it when I'm downstairs. And then it's like also have an alarm on my phone to tell me to yell it to that kid. Are you out of bed? Are you out of, have you gotten dressed? Have you gone to the bathroom? Have you done this? Right. So a lot of repetitiveness. So I have one that I do that with. The other one, it's more just trying to keep focus. Like, okay, stop squirreling, right? Like, stop, you know, like, okay, let's, 5 minutes of spinning, and then you can, do this. And like, just trying to do a lot of that. I keep our day very, like, pretty routine. When they go to school, it is very predictable. So they know what they're gonna, like, their lunches, I figured out what they like for lunches. And, so relatively predictable for lunch. And then during the day when they're at school, it's usually just getting things done, either with my other one that needs occupational therapy or physical therapy, or maybe it's a counseling session for me. It's groceries, all the boring stuff, right? And
so that predictability in your schedule and that repetition kind of gets things going for you and keeps your mind at ease, if you could say that.
It brings up less stress in the kids, I find. If I can keep it as predictable as I can, if I don't overload them, because we've had situations where there's an appointment after school. That appointment after school throws them off so much that I have to, then they shut down. And then, now we're dealing with a lot of bigger emotions. And, so I would just say, like, I just try to keep things as predictable and as chill as I can. And that's how we've had to do it for years now, is just, keep it as simple as possible.
Would that be your advice for parents with neurodivergent? I know every child is different, but generally when you have a child that is neurodivergent, does that help to have a schedule that is mostly predictable, getting down packed what they like, and just making sure that those things are consistent?
I would say so, yes.
Right. I know it sounds normal to somebody, but I have the option where my kids, I can throw a Pop-Tart in their lunch bag. I can do this and do that. So until you are actually, if you're a parent, you will understand that it's not simple to have that consistency, because days are not the same. Like, I don't always want to go to Costco. I don't always want to go to, buy this or that, or buy the thing that you like. But with my kids, I have that option, but you don't, right? You have to buy specific things, specific brands of things.
Like, I kid you not.
I can wrestle with prices when I'm in Superstore. You have to buy the blueberries that are $20 and it's just a small pack.
Yes, because that is something I know they will eat. Like, I might be able, with one kid, give them more blueberries because they like blueberries. And then the other one, I can, give more strawberries to, or something. I'm very lucky in that sense that they will eat quite a bit of fruit. And one will eat vegetables, which is awesome. The other one, cucumbers. That's it. But
so you have to kind of do what things in that manner. So I want to take a pause here, because I know that somebody said to you, like, after everything I've heard, I would say you're resilient.
Oh, yeah.
Someone told you that you weren't resilient. Can you tell me about that conversation?
That conversation messed with me for a while. Because it was a doctor. Right.
And of course, doctors are respected. They went to school for a very long time. They've earned it. They can say what they want and they know best.
And at this point, it was during COVID. So we were doing a lot of, like, the phone calls and Zooms and stuff. Right. My mom, I knew to keep my mom in the background. Like, my mom was on the other side of the laptop, because it was like, I know this doctor's going to try to pull something. And she did. I had called her because I was having trouble with my mental health at that point. Who wasn't, right? And she just got frustrated. She got frustrated and she's like, Kristina, you're not resilient. Like, and she just kept repeating, you're not resilient. I have other patients that can go through different things and they're okay. They're resilient. You are not resilient. And it took me a long time to even be able to hear the word resilient. Because it set off such a trigger in me. So
that you weren't it, that everything else that you're going through and what you're doing is just, you just need to stick it up and
Yeah, you need to deal with it.
And
you
just
need
deal
to,
with it and keep it going.
Your kids are not a problem, and like I love my kids, but at that time we didn't know about their diagnoses.
Yeah.
All I knew was these were like insanely anxious children that were set off by, like they'd see a bug and one would go running into the road. And I was like, this is not normal. Kids don't run into traffic.
Do stuff like that.
Like we don't do this, or, we don't try to put a blanket over somebody else's, like a baby's head when they're sleeping. Like, you talk to the kid, you tell them that.
So you're learning all of these things and you're doing your best, but then someone's opinion is just shoved into your head and repeated over and over.
Yes. And that was the person that would not let go of the borderline personality disorder.
And was like, no, it's still her. Still experiencing those things. Wasn't a misdiagnosis. That's her.
And so that one, I was like so thankful when they retired. It was like the best. It was the best.
You're gone. You are gone. I don't have to deal with you. So I want to talk about, before you found therapy, there was another thing that you had tried while you were trying to, find your path, find your way, feel better in your skin, learn to love you as the girl with the boobs and the vagina and the lovely butt and everything else. So you mentioned being a part of a church discipleship program. So you went to the church, as many of us do. And you were going through these deliverance sessions that were attempted. What was the experience like for you, and how did this affect your faith? So you're at the church, and what you're experiencing is demonic. They're going to cast out the demon. And then your demon didn't want to leave.
Right.
Okay. So so tell me how this has affected your faith.
Sorry, just thinking about the demon not wanting to leave. Okay,
I promise you it's gone.
Okay,
but,
so just so we're clarifying, the demon was mental illness. Right? And
as many churches, qualify depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, any of these things that are mental health related are demons. And they can be cast out through deliverance.
And I was never a good enough Christian. Because I could not, there was so many times that I didn't agree with what they were teaching. So I'd be like secretly holding on to the thing, I believe women have a choice when it comes to, like, I haven't had an abortion myself, but I believe women, they have a choice. It's your body. I'm not going to tell you not to. You're the one that has to deal with it. Whatever, if you choose to,
so
or
you're pro-choice.
I don't care if you're gay, straight, trans, not, like, it doesn't matter to me. But in a church, that is frowned upon greatly, very. Like, I remember there was this one girl at that time, and she had been told she couldn't come to the church anymore. Because her ex or her friend or ex or something was part of this discipleship program. And because that friend was gay, they could not come anymore.
Wow.
They were openly a lesbian, and that's that. You could not come. So, like, for myself, I struggled with a lot of those feelings of this doesn't feel right, but I don't know what I necessarily believe in because I might believe in the wrong thing, and I don't want to make my mental health worse because, what if it is demons and really I am wrong?
They need to be cast out. And of course, you painted this picture that the people that would share how this program had benefited them would just seem so shiny and sparkly, and they're the perfect Christians, and they did it, and just like, listen, they are like on Jesus's team. He's on their team. And angels are like, around them. And so you are trying to achieve this.
I didn't. And I couldn't.
You just weren't the right candidate.
I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how many times I got down on my knees and I'd be like, talking to God, and I'd be, please just help me. Like, help me not feel this way. Like, help me
to see their point of view when they say, you can't be gay, you can't be this, you can't be that.
Yes. And like,
so do you still believe in God now?
Yes.
Do you believe in Jesus?
Yes.
And so what has having had that experience, how did you reshape what is the relationship that you have with God and you have with Jesus, you have with the Holy Spirit? What does that look like now? Does it say we love all people no matter what their sexuality is?
Mm-hmm.
Does it say the blood of Jesus has cleansed you and you don't have anything that is on you that could control you or run your life? Does it say it's okay to go to therapy to talk about the things that you need to talk about? What's your relationship like?
My relationship is still being worked on.
Yeah.
100%. I'm still, after dealing with that church and all the rejection and all the hurt after and just all the yuck.
Yeah.
I couldn't even talk to God. Yeah. I couldn't even think about God. I couldn't, like, anything that had to do with God was just like, I wanted to throw up.
Yeah.
Because there was so much yuck to it.
Yeah.
And it's been a very slow progress.
Yeah.
You know, I teach my kids a little bit about God.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have a lot of answers for them anymore because I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
I don't want them to ever think that, you know, you can just believe in God and everything's going to be okay, because we all know not everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like, shit happens.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you don't take your medication, God's not like, God gave you doctors and your medication. And like, even for myself, like, I thought at one point that I could come off meds and, you know, God's going to heal me. God didn't heal me. Right.
Got on your meds and then you were A-okay.
I was doing much better on my meds. Like, so it's like been a lot of learning experiences like that. Like, okay, God is still good even if I'm on medication.
Yeah. God still loves me even if I'm talking to my therapist.
Yes. And God still loves me even though, you know, I've had kids and not been married. Right? Yeah. God still loves me.
He loves my children.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, something with the God stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah.
And back then, which I just, porn. Yeah. Okay, I know where I just...
You love watching porn.
When I was younger.
And so is it God is okay with you watching porn? Or where are you with that?
I think at that point, like, I think that is something that really, really can mess a person. Like, just, how do I... Because that was something that really affected me.
Yeah.
Because back then, it was only boys that watched porn.
Yeah.
Right.
Girls didn't.
Boys were
Girls were the porn characters.
Yes, exactly. Right. And so boys were the only ones that went up to the altar when it came to struggling with sexuality, which is, you know, they're whatever they're feeling. Boys were the only ones. And I felt like such an outcast because it's like, but I'm still struggling. Yeah. Like, you know, and a lot of that stuff had to do with trauma from when I was younger, and I just didn't understand even how my body was, and I felt gross about certain things and feeling things and, you know, being with a person and all that stuff. But, I mean, I can't say porn's like, I don't even have time for nothing. Like, I have nothing in my life anymore that has to do with sexuality because I'm a single mom to 3 kids and there's no time for nothing.
Yeah.
So
how are you now in feeling like a woman? Like, do you feel good in your skin now? Are you accepting of all the voluptuousness of womanhood?
I'm working on it.
You're working on it.
I think that is something.
Are you looking forward to it as you're working on it? Like, I look forward to when all of this is good with me.
Yes. Okay. I look forward to being more okay in my skin, whatever weight I'm at. Yeah. You know, wherever my boobs are sitting, right?
Sticking out in
like wherever my boobs are sitting, you know, because after so many babies, it's just like, you know, things just don't sit. And I look at pictures now, just like when I was younger and I hated my body.
Yeah.
And I look back now, I'm like, oh, you bitch, you knew nothing.
You did not know that these things will start sagging.
You did not
you
know.
Have enjoyed yourself when everything was intact.
Your body was not fat back then. Like, you were not fat. You were just like, you were a little bit like voluptuous. Like you had a little bit of a booty
but
there.
You had a lot going on for you, girl. You should have enjoyed this moment. I know. I want to talk about. I know we've talked about this experience with the church and the discipleship program, but one of the things was that during that program, you had to stay with somebody. Like, you couldn't just be by yourself if you were a young adult.
Yes.
And so they had you stay with this lady called Ellen.
Yes.
And Ellen had a statement that she always told you.
Yes.
And I want to just hear you say it and just let me know how that changed your life. How you apply this to your life today.
She always told me not to borrow trouble from tomorrow.
Don't borrow trouble from tomorrow.
Yes. She always told me that. Because often she was one of those people that, she was a Christian.
Yeah.
But she didn't necessarily always have that like super shiny look of like everything being perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So she had illnesses and she was real, and, she'd get mad and she'd get frustrated and she'd be like, oh, this person's doing such a stupid thing. And
she was human.
She was human, but she loved God so big until like
the very end. She believed God for a healing.
Yes.
She taught you how to pray. She would worship.
Yes.
I'm so glad that experience brought Ellen in your life. Do you borrow trouble from tomorrow?
Oh, hell yeah. I still do.
No matter how much Ellen's voice is echoing in your head, you're still borrowing trouble from tomorrow?
I still do.
How is that working out for you?
It doesn't. It honestly doesn't.
So Ellen told the truth.
Yes, she did. And so
the truth should set you free, don't you think, Kristina?
Yes, it should. It's like I have to remind myself this one a lot. I have to remind myself, like, I can't control those things. Like, what's going to happen tomorrow, I can't deal with it today. Like, and I'd say I'm starting to get a bit better with that.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a bit better with understanding that there's some things just not in my control.
Yeah.
Someone's illness, their cancer diagnosis, our government with money and stuff. Like, there's stuff that I'm panicking over, and I'm like, Kristina, just breathe.
Just don't that one is not even don't borrow trouble from tomorrow. Just drop that trouble.
You can't.
Because you can't do anything about it. So what would you say to your younger self today, going through all that you've gone through, everything that you've shared today?
Yes.
What would you say to that girl with the yellow spaghetti top going down the hill with her brothers in the red wagon?
There's like so many different things I'd want to tell her.
It's a 1 hour podcast, love.
There's so many things. The first thing is probably that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay no matter like how much trauma you go through.
Yeah.
How much the doctors, how horribly you're treated along the lines and by people, by doctors, by, men. It's still going to be okay.
You're going to be okay. I love that. So some person who said that you were not resilient, we've talked about that. Mm-hmm. My question is, there are 3 people that I think are worthy of commenting in that manner in your life, your children. If they could describe you in one word, what do you hope they would say and why?
I would just say, like, my kids would probably say that they would just say love.
Love.
They would say, Mommy is love.
Why?
Because that's all I ever pour out to them. Even though they know, like we talk about, sometimes Mommy gets mad, but I still love you.
Yeah.
Right? I'm allowed being mad, but I still love you. I'm sad right now because this happened, and I still love you. And
love. Yeah. That's special. What do you want your story to inspire in others who hear it?
That's a big question. I'd say hope.
Hope.
Yeah. I would say hope that you can, like, if your kid is going through depression and anxiety and you're as a parent struggling with mental illness, or like your kid's struggling with mental illness, you're the parent that's hanging on, watching your kid.
Yeah.
Just know that being there, present with them, even if they're hating you.
Yeah.
Because I hated my mom.
Yeah.
I hated her with like so much passion, right?
Yeah.
I would say just hang on and know that it's a shit ride, but you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I just want people to know that even having kids that are autistic, like some of those things are really, really hard. But there's some wonderful times I have with my kids that I'm like, whoa, your brain is like so far ahead than like you're so aware of things, right?
Yeah.
Like one can make like 1,000-piece Legos in like less than 2 days. And I was like, dude, like how, like just how? You know, like your brains are just
see how smart they are.
Yeah. And it's just, it's different. And
So
it's
it
okay.
inspires hope.
And it's okay to be different. Our stories do not have to look like those shiny people that were at the front of the church. And it doesn't make me a bad person to be living the life that I'm living now.
Yeah.
So
that's really, really awesome. So before I say the last thing that I want to say, this is your moment to ask your question.
Have you stopped running away?
I haven't. In some ways, I have. But I think the person that I describe here, the girl that has gone to different countries, lived in different cities, have sat in some of the muddiest, slummiest places in life and shouldn't have been there. I think there's an element of me that will always run because things happen in life that scare you. I never thought that in a space of 2 years, I would pick 2 coffins of people that were really important to me. And in that moment, I wanted to run. When we left Kelowna, I sold all my stuff. I wasn't going to come back to Canada. Needed something to hate. And Canada was the place. I brought my daughter here, fought for her life. And Kelowna let me down in that. My daughter still died. I wanted to run away. So I think in many ways, running will always be more like a response for me to things that are traumatic.
Yes.
But I know this about myself. I always come back home.
I love that.
Are you still running?
Sometimes. But not like I used to. It's, like you said, a reflex. That instant thing, like, you know, you get bad news or something and you're ready to just like book it. Like you want out of town or whatever, right? And then you have to calm yourself and you're like, okay, I can't run because, you know, my kids are my grounding point.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say if I didn't have my kids, I probably would have, like I wouldn't be anywhere. I'd probably be dead in all honesty.
Yeah.
But because of my kids, I don't run even, like I don't do any of those things I used to do because I need to be present for them. And I can't run. Not like I used to.
Not like you used to.
No.
So I wanted to say this to finish off our episode today. You wanted to give people hope with your story. And you said your children, in one word, they'll describe you as love. And I know that we've touched a little bit about what happened to you in the church and that experience with that program. It reminded me of that scripture that says these 3 things remain: faith, hope, and love. So I pray that you will find your faith because you've given hope and your children see you as love. Thank you.